We are here in New York City at Mosaic, New York, and want to welcome everyone in Los Angeles. Good morning, Mosaic. Come on. Can you guys say hello? So good. And we are beginning a new series today. You know, whenever you step into a space like this on Sunday, or you open up the scriptures, you normally expect a conversation that's predominantly about God. Because when you think about the Bible, you think about, the story of God. But the reality is that even though God is the theme throughout the scriptures, the Bible's actually the story of us. It's the story of us in relationship to God. One of the amazing things about the scriptures is that while it has incredible insights to who God is, it has far more insights to who we are. So we're going to begin a series together called Humans. What makes us us? There are at least 8.7 million different species on this planet. And yet, somehow, as human beings, we seem to separate ourselves from even the most extraordinary species that exists on this earth. We're the singular species from all that we can tell with consciousness. We're certainly the only ones who can play video games. There are no other species like human beings. And I think a part of the great challenge for us is trying to understand who we are in the context of everything that has been created. And one of the challenges sometimes as humans is that it feels as if we're the only species that doesn't really know how to be the species. Every other species just does their species naturally. Otters just otter. Beavers just beaver. Antelopes just antelope. But humans are always in a crisis. What does it mean to be human? What does it mean to be me? And the way that plays out in real life is that we end up being a species in constant identity crisis. Isn't it kind of unusual that with at least 8 billion of us on this planet, the one thing we have in common is that every single human being has an identity crisis? In fact, if I did a quick survey here, anyone here never had an identity crisis? Because if you raise your hand, I know you're having one right now, and you just don't want to be honest and you feel fragile. Because there's something about us human beings. We become perplexed about something so simple as, who am I? And not only do we not seem to know who we are, we don't even know why we need to know who we are. Why do you need to have an identity? Why do you have a crisis about something that should just be inherent, obvious? And yet, it's one of the markers of our story. We have a lot of language for it, like insignificance. Why would you feel insignificant, except that you don't know who you are? We have language like insignificance, insecurity, self-image, depression. All this language is really the language that unwraps the fact that we don't know who we are or why we are, or maybe even what we are. I've always thought it's so odd that the very things we think can give us a sense of identity are the very things that oftentimes betray us. Have you ever convinced yourself, if I can succeed, then I'll know who I am? If I can accomplish something significant, then I will feel significant. If I can be loved by others, then I will feel worthy of love. If I can somehow create a life that is admirable or noble or inspirational, then I will not have self-doubt. Then I'll know who I am, and yet we don't. In fact, maybe that's the danger of celebrity, is that we look at people and we think, if I can become them, then I won't feel like I'm nothing. If I can accomplish what they accomplish, maybe then I will feel I have value and worth. And then what do you discover? The very people who already have the things you think will fulfill your identity have an identity crisis. And it's terrifying to think there is actually nothing out there that could ever fulfill that vacuum in us that makes us wonder if we have any value at all. And the same applies to even our relationship to God. Yeah, you ever have a friend or meet someone that used to believe in God but no longer believes in God? Maybe that's you. Or someone who used to have incredible faith that says, well, I lost my faith. Or someone who says, I don't trust God anymore. I don't believe in God anymore. And what's interesting to me is that whenever you have that dynamic, it's never because of something God did, but something a human being did. You stop trusting God because you stop trusting people. You feel betrayed by God because you feel betrayed by people. You feel that God cannot be known when you wonder if anyone can really be known or if anyone knows you. And so somehow the human relationship, the human dynamic has a direct effect even in our belief systems in God and ourselves. So I want to go back to the beginning. I want to talk to you about what it means to be us, what it means to be you, what it means to be human. And I want us to go to the beginning of the story of us. In Genesis chapter 1, verse 27, there's one verse that speaks to the beginning of us. It says, so God created humans in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. This is the first beautiful imagery of the beginning of us, of this unique species come to be known as humans, that we're created in God's image. It's as if God is sitting back looking at all the creation. The days have passed by. The universe has come into existence, galaxies and solar systems and novas and supernovas and black holes and deep space and all the dynamics of the universe, from microbes to atoms to particles. And it's almost as if God is looking at all of his work and feeling unimpressed with himself, going, I know there's more. I can do more. I can do something so exquisite that it would astonish everyone. And then he creates you. And so God creates humans in his own image as if he saved the very best for last. So of all the species, of the 8.7 million species on this planet, or maybe even up to 30 million, the only species described in this way is you, created in the image and likeness of God. But as if the creation of humans could not be contained in one story, in one verse, the story begins again in Genesis chapter 2, verse 7. It's almost as if he didn't tell it the first time. This time he adds a little texture and color and dynamic. It says in Genesis chapter 2, verse 7, then the Lord God formed a man, a human, from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. And the man became a living being. Here he uses two really powerful images, dust and breath. Breath and dust. I don't know if you realize this, but you're a hybrid. You're the intersection of two realities. You are dust. You come from temporary created material. And you are breath. You come from eternal, divine material. And both of those intersect in this moment, and God uses it like a masterful artist, and he designs the uniqueness of a human being. But that makes sense as to why we're so confused, because we're dust and breath. Have you ever looked in the mirror or thought to yourself, I'm kind of awesome? You ever have those moments? You can't say that out loud, right? You ever just have that thought? Like, I'm kind of awesome. I hope he can see it. I hope she can see it. I hope my boss can see it. You ever get frustrated? I'm awesome. Why can't anyone see how awesome I actually am? You ever just wake up and go, I'm unstoppable? Like, I'm amazing. I'm a force of nature. And then it's Tuesday. And you go, I'm nothing. I'm dirt. I'm worthless. I have no talent, no ability. Why? Why is everyone better than me? You ever just feel as if you're internally bipolar about yourself? It's because it's the dust and the breath sending conflicting messages into your soul. You're not sure which one you are. And the danger, of course, is when you're disconnected from God, all you're aware of is your dust. And you're suffocating for breath. And then if you're delusional, you think all you are is breath and you try to ignore the dust. But they're both a part of who you are. You're the dust of creation and the breath of Creator, which, by the way, I think explains some of the language about the universe. I have a wonderful new friend named Gabby, and she's really known for her conversations about the universe, about manifestation, about our connection to the universe. And I was watching her early this morning because I love listening to people who see the world differently than me. And she was actually leading people in a declaration about the intention of the universe. And I realized, well, here's what's fascinating about us is that when you don't have that ultimate connection to God, you keep pushing the dust up, hoping that what actually makes us unique is that transcendent connection to the universe. But as powerful and extraordinary and profound as the universe is still dust. And what your soul is searching for is spirit. What your soul is searching for is life. Because you're both breath and dust interconnected together. But if this is true, then why are we always struggling with understanding who we are? You ever looked at yourself in the mirror and realized you're not really seeing you? You're seeing the reversal of you? I had this damage to my left eye and had to have multiple surgeries. And sometimes I'd look in the mirror and I'd forget which eye it was. Because when I wake up, they both look like they had surgery. And and I literally have to put my finger up and look in the mirror and go, oh yeah, it's this one. Because when you're looking in a mirror, you're looking at a reversal of you. You never actually see the real you. And this is the dilemma with your identity. Your identity cannot be formed in isolation. Your identity is formed in the reflection of how others see you. And so you're not born with an identity or, by the way, an identity crisis. It's formed as others tell you who you are. It's formed as others tell you who you're not. It's formed as your inner world decides which voice or which voices have more power in defining you. And then you end up having this universe of voices inside of you conflicting, telling you who you are and who you're not. You're not sure which one you believe. And for some of you, your entire life journey, your entire psychological crisis, your emotional instability will be based on this fact that you keep searching for your identity in a mirror that doesn't show you who you really are. Our journey is, in part, trying to figure out who we are. By the way, I get the 5 out of 5 stars on identity crisis. I mean, I'm a Latino from El Salvador with a German-Irish name. You can't top that, all right? You know, the reason I usually use my middle name, too, it's Erwin Raphael McManus, is because Raphael is the only Spanish name I got, but it's actually misspelled. Because no one told me how to spell my name, so I saw a movie, the guy's name was up there, so I spelled it like that. It's the Italian version, not the Spanish version, but that's okay. But McManus, I'm not Irish, look at me. My mom married a guy involved in creative underground economies, and he took us to a police station, and he immediately walked out with an alias. I became Irish in a moment. And I was just a little kid, so I believed it. I'm Irish. I celebrated St. Patrick's Day every year. I wore green. I was the only Latino who thought he was Irish in the world because I was a McManus. Because once they gave me the name, isn't that who I am? And then I made the mistake of going to El Salvador to ask my grandfather, who did not speak English, for a good American name. Because I had a good Jewish name. And having a good Jewish name in Miami didn't go that well then. And so I asked my grandfather for a new name, and he didn't want to tell me he didn't know a good American name, so he just made it up. He said, un nombre. Ay, pues este nombre tiene que ser un nombre de un líder. Una persona con inteligencia. And he's like, you're going on. This name has to be the name of a leader. It has to be the name of someone brilliant. It has to be the name of someone who changes history. No, I'm 10. I just don't want to get beat up. That's it. I just don't want to be the target of everyone in first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade when we have to say our name. He says, su nombre es Erwin. I said, ¿qué? I said, Erwin. Spanish people can't even pronounce Erwin. And I said, ¿qué, papi? I mean, it sounded like a bacteria to me. What are you doing to me? And he started spelling out, E-R. He'd been studying World War II history, so he named me after Hitler's German general over North America, or North Africa, Erwin Rommel. So I'm now a Nazi Irishman. And can you imagine growing up with that? Because as sociologists will tell you, if you have a popular name, you actually become popular. You actually get defined by the name your parents give you. And you can actually have an advantage or a disadvantage. And so I grew up with this identity crisis when everyone else would say, I'm John Smith. I'm Susan Powell. I would say, my name is, because I didn't know who I was. I didn't even know what my name was. So it makes sense to me why I was in a psychiatric chair by the time I was 10 years old. Because humans are designed to know who they are. And we will spend our lives searching for our identity. But you will never find your identity until you find your intention. And you will never know who you are until you understand what you are. You are created in the image and likeness of God. This is your origin story. This is where you began. And so if your story begins with only the human story, you lack the data to ever find your identity. But when your story roots back to the divine story, that you are created in God's image, that he designed you for himself, that your essential nature is of divine material, then you can find your identity in your intention. Because who you are is not nearly as important as what you are. Imagine if you could actually believe this. If you could wake up in the morning and go, oh, I have a headache, but I am a masterpiece. Oh, man, I don't know how I'm going to face these challenges, but I am created in the image of God. Man, I don't know if I have what it takes to take on this challenge, this crisis, this problem. Oh, that's just the dust speaking. But I'm going to breathe into that dust because I'm breath and dust. And while my dust reminds me that I have a first breath and a last breath in this world, that I'm captured in time and space, my breath reminds me that I am of eternal material, that I am timeless, and not even death can bring the end of my story. I think sometimes we're just underestimating the design of who we are. You're human. Oh, and by the way, that serpent happens later in chapter 3, that comes into the garden, talks to Eve because really she was in charge, right? And because she talked to the boss, right? So the snake talks to the woman, and what does he say to her? God knows that if you eat from this tree, you will become like him. Here's the irony. They were already like him. They were already created like him. The snake convinced them that their identity was not rooted in their creator, that he had stolen their identity from them. He had withheld their identity from them. If you eat from this, if you separate yourself from God, if you do this on your own, in your own strength, in your own way, then you will find your deepest, truest identity. You'll become like God. And that's the lie. That your ultimate intention, that your significance, that your value can be found outside of the one who created you. And that snake's been lying to us ever since. But now that snake is just an inner voice that says, you don't matter. You're not enough. You'll never be good enough. You'll never be worthy of love. And all those voices in your head are just the lie telling you to find your identity in something outside of God. Because when you search for your identity outside of the one who made you, it's always about something you can do. And you can never do enough to be enough. Which, by the way, is a part of why Jesus came. I mean, one of the amazing things about Jesus, because if you think about it, of all the species, he only picked one species to become. God created all the species, every one of them, but he chose to become human. I don't know if I would have chosen that. How about you? I'd choose, I want to be a porpoise, right? I mean, that's a cool species. I just think porpoise is really interesting. Or maybe God could come back as an eagle, right? But instead he came back as a human, one of us. The only species that doesn't know how to be the species. The only species that ends up struggling with depression and anxiety and stress and fear and doubt and insignificance. He chooses to become one of us, not just to show us who God is, but to show us who we are. See, Jesus was both fully God and fully human so that we could know what it means to be human again. Oh, by the way, that image of God thing, what does it mean when he says you're created in God's image? Well, let's work through the process of elimination. When he says he made us in his image, he didn't make us all powerful. Anybody know that you're not all powerful? So he didn't give us that characteristic, so we don't get that one. He also didn't make us all omnipresent. Not omnipotent, not omnipresent. Some of you are trying to be omnipresent. That's why you keep having burnout and breakdowns. And then God's also omniscient. He's all-knowing. Some of you think you're all-knowing, but you're not all-knowing, and you figure that out pretty quickly, right? The moment you can't find your keys, then you go, oh, I'm not all-knowing. Or the moment your girlfriend said, didn't you know it was my birthday? And you would go, oh, wow, I'm not omniscient. I don't know everything. She goes, yeah, but you need to know something, right? And so the three big ones, God's power, his knowledge, and his presence, he didn't give us. He didn't make us all powerful, all knowing, or omnipresent. By the way, though, neither was Jesus. All right, hang with me. When we think about Jesus being fully God, we go, wait a minute, he had to have those omnis, right? Except he wasn't omnipresent, because when Jesus walked on this earth, you go, oh, there's Jesus. He's not there. See? It's not hard to figure out. When Jesus walked this earth, he was not omnipresent. He was where he was. He was also, by the way, not all-powerful. In fact, Jesus said, apart from the Father, I could do nothing. So not only was not all-powerful, he had zero power. He gave it all up. He emptied himself, had no power, and he was still fully God. Not only that, he wasn't even all-knowing. They asked Jesus, when's it all coming together? He goes, I don't know. I mean, imagine being God, being so comfortable going, I don't know. But you're God. I know. I gave that up. I'm good with that. How can you still be God and not be all-knowing? Because you don't understand the essence of God. So those are just my attributes, not my essence. That's just stuff that's real because I'm God, but my essence is my character. See, Jesus was fully God while he walked this earth without being all-knowing, all-powerful, and all-present, which tells me you can be a full and beautiful reflection of God on this earth in time and space without being all-knowing, all-powerful, and all-present. Because the image of God is reflected in your essence, in your character. And by the way, one of the simple descriptions of God is that God is love. Just a wonderful, simple summary. God is love. So we know that the driving principle of everything God does is love. Everything God does is an extension of love. Everything is informed by love. Everything is formed by love. The entire universe, the universal principle of all creation is love. And so when you move away from love, you move away from the image of God. And when you move toward love, you move toward the image of God. And that's why when you see an act of love, you know that you've seen God. And when we begin to live a life of love, we begin to reflect God most beautifully. So it's not that complicated. You go, well, how can it be like God? It's really simple. Let love become the driving principle of your life. And you will begin to live your life like Jesus lived his life. Because Jesus was the pure expression of love wrapped up in skin so that we could see not only who God is, but who we are. So I wonder, are you struggling with your identity? Wondering if you're enough. Wondering if you matter. Have you found yourself just frustrated sometimes because you keep going back to that same brokenness and those same patterns, and you can't seem to shake free from the worst expression of you? Do you have these voices in your head that haunt you? They keep telling you who you're not. You need to realize that there are voices inside of you that lie to you. And they'll convince you of who you're not and who you are if you don't know what you are. So let me just take a second and tell you what you are. You are a divine masterpiece. Just look at the person next to you, awkwardly, right now. You're looking at a masterpiece. I know what you're thinking. You just looked at some Picassos, some abstract art. Because humans are so much more complex than we could ever imagine. And the reason Jesus stepped into human history for us is not to make you superhuman, but to make you human again. I was walking over here thinking, as I do, about Batman and Superman. And I'm torn. Because Batman is Bruce Wayne, but he's really Bruce Wayne, acting as Batman. But he puts on his costume. But Superman is like Superman, acting like Clark Kent. But he's not even that. That's almost a misconception. Because Clark Kent isn't actually Superman. Superman isn't actually Clark Kent. He's actually Kal-El. He's a third person that's different than the other two. See, I think sometimes we live our lives trying to be Batman. I'm going to pretend I'm awesome by putting on a mask and hiding my brokenness and my pain and my fears and my doubts. And sometimes we believe we're Superman. But we be humble, so we act like Clark Kent. But we know we're powerful. But what you need to realize is you're actually Kal-El. You're a whole different species than you ever imagined. You were designed in God's image, and that image still exists within you. But it's broken and fragmented. And every time you look at that image without God on the other side of the mirror, you see an imperfect, broken, fragmented, distorted version of you. And what Jesus came to do is help you see God clearly and help you see yourself clearly so you can wake up in the morning and you can know, I have significance, I have value. I am not accidental. I have intention. I'm here to do something beautiful and profound and powerful within me. There is all the material I need to do the good and the beautiful and the true. And I am unstoppable. I am dust fueled by breath. So don't underestimate who I am. Because you will only underestimate who I am if you don't understand what I am. And what I am is what matters. I am created in his image. And that can never be taken away from you. And maybe you're here and you've wondered, why did Jesus come? He came because he created you to be an extension of his love. He created you because he came for you to refine your intention for existing. That separation between us and God, one of the places we can feel it and see it is our loss of identity. All those internal emotions of fear and depression and anxiety and stress and loneliness, those are just symptoms of your separation from God. And when you invite Jesus into your life, you are reconnecting to the creator of the universe. You are reconnecting to your source of identity. When you open your life to Jesus, you've opened yourself up, yes, to the entire universe. Because the God who created the universe designed everything in your favor. But the universe is just brilliant dust. You are spirit, created in the image of God. Breath. At the end of Jesus' life, actually after his life, in his resurrection, there's this little hidden verse, and it said, and Jesus breathed on them. It's just hidden there in the Bible. Jesus breathed on them. It's this wonderful homage to Genesis chapter 2, where God breathed into us life. And the scriptures are letting us know Jesus came to breathe life back into you, if you would just invite him to do so. Would you bow your heads with me just for a moment and close your eyes? Maybe you're here today and you've never invited Jesus into your life. You've never crossed the line of faith. And I want you to hear this in this moment. You are the creative act of God, a divine masterpiece. You are a spiritual being on a human journey. You are an eternal being traveling through time and space. You are a human being searching for your way back to your original intention. And it is Jesus who has come to show you the way. And if you've never invited Jesus into your life, he's waiting for you. It's simple. It's just a relationship. And it can begin with an invitation, with an ask, with a prayer. Jesus, I give you my life. And if you're here and you're ready to follow Jesus, to open your life to him, right now, just whisper this prayer. Jesus, I give you my life. Right now, just tell him, Jesus, I give you my life. If this is your prayer, I want to pray for you. If you just whispered that prayer, Jesus, I give you my life, would you just very quietly, just raise your hand? I want to see you and I want to pray for you. Beautiful. Anyone else? Beautiful, beautiful. Anyone else? Wonderful. So good. Also, if you're here and you would say, man, I've just been existing. I've been suffocating because I've just been living like I'm dust. But I need to step close to Jesus so his breath can make me fully alive. I don't want to just survive. I don't want to just exist. I want to live. I want to pray for you too. And if that's you, I just want you to honestly just raise your hand right now and go, that's me. I've just been existing. I've been suffocating. I want to live. I want God to be real and deep in my life. Beautiful. Father, I thank you for those who in this moment whispered that simple prayer, Jesus, I give you my life. I pray, God, you would just wrap them up in your love and let them know they belong to you, that today is the beginning of a new life. And God, I pray for those who have just been struggling and maybe suffocating, just existing. I pray, God, you would just breathe so deeply into them. They would inhale and step into your presence and come close to you, Jesus, and trust that you are the God who wants the best for them. We thank you, Father, and we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.